Here we go. Cool. Okay, so thank you, firstly. And so my question number one is, what is human-computer interaction?
Yeah. Okay. So HCI, human-computer interaction, actually is quite an interdisciplinary field itself. If you want to be an HCI expert, you could come to it from different routes. Okay, it's quite a peculiar field like that, but it's also interesting because of that. Most fields generally, like if you say chemistry or geology, I don't know how long I tend to babble a lot, so I'm just going to babble on and tell you things that I think, right?
Dude,
yeah.
no time.
Sure. So traditionally, I think disciplines have been quite compartmentalized like this. Have chemistry or whatever. But that's not how we think, right? In the world, if you have a problem, you want to try and solve it. It's mostly you want to combine a range of perspectives. And for me, HCI is a very interesting discipline exactly because of that, because it's extremely multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. So you can come to it from various fields. I came to it from computer science, but I have colleagues that come to it from psychology, from design, from art, from philosophy, from a range of background. Okay, we even have people with chemical engineer and material engineer that come do HCI. So it's an extremely diverse, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary field that you can come to it with different backgrounds. What we're concerned with is effectively that point of contact between people and technology. Okay, how do we understand that point of contact? Okay, and you can imagine this is becoming increasingly important because we come across, in contact with especially computing technology a lot. So how do we design for that interaction, basically? So we're interested in a range of things around that point of contact. So how do we design? How do you come up with interesting ideas of how people interact with computing technology? How do we engineer that interface from a technical perspective? And then we also study the impact that device that we created has on the person or the group and so on. So we're interested, I guess that's captured by the human-computer interaction bit. So we're interested in understanding the person, the people, whether it's an individual or a group or a society. And then we're interested in engineering technology that we could use to do things. And then we're interested in the impact that this has. So these are the three kind of, I think for me, the pillars of HCI. And we're interested in all these things. And yeah, I think that would be my that would be my answer to what HCI is. Yes.
I've done a lot of research on this topic whilst writing this, but I always thought it would be really great to listen to someone like yourself talk about it. And I think, yeah, it really I don't know, it's listening to like a really, really good lecture.
Yeah, right. But the interesting thing is that, traditionally it's called human-computer interaction for historical reasons,
Yeah.
And it gives the impression that this is a person with a computer,
yeah,
or a computer device. But it's interesting to think about how it developed as well, because we're not interested in one person, actually. The human encompasses either an individual with their device, or a group of people, or larger group of people, or society, or humanity, right? So yeah. The human is very expandable. And equally, the computer, traditionally we say computer, you think of a desktop. That's when HCI started in the, around the 80s, really. So it came into being around the notion when personal computers started to become a thing. Yeah? Computers were large rooms, very specialized things, and then they become personal computers. And that's where HCI started. Okay, so we're interested in that one-to-one thing, but actually not anymore, right? Because you don't interact with just one device,
no,
and you don't interact with other people with just. So that's another thing. So it's expandable in terms of the notion of a computer. Then the interaction is even more subtle and complicated, because what do we mean by interaction? Is it moving the mouse and typing?
Yeah.
Or is it more than that? So it's expandable like that. There's a range of ways in which we can understand interaction. It's not to do with just controlling the interface, not really. It's to do with where that point of interaction happens, or who does it happen with, and it's expandable that way as well. So it's a very interesting and peculiar field like that is extremely. One exercise I like to do with my students as soon as in the first lecture of HCI, the very first time, I say hello, and then I say maybe you can do it here. We say look around, let's count how many computers are around.
Yeah.
Okay. And the obvious things like, oh, you have a laptop, I have a phone, and then if we start counting, actually, well, there's a projector, there's a control over there for the heater, there's my key ring for opening my cards, my credit card has a chip, the notion of computer is extremely fluid like that. And we're interested in all these stuff with HCI.
Cool. Oh, okay. So well, this leads us perfectly onto the second question is, like, do you have like a specific example of HCI which will come from, across on our day-to-day lives, which I think you've covered, right? Like pretty much everything we do these days is all
I think
HCI.
so, yeah. I think so. Like I said, we think of that point of contact between a human being and a computer and technology, but that's not reducible to just a computer, because what a computer is now, it's very fluid. It's in
Mm,
your car, it's in your pockets, in your clothes,
mm,
it's in your shoes, it's in the hospital, it's in you as a surgeon. So take any domain, and the technology has like, I don't know if infiltrated is probably not the right word, but it's there, right? It has trickled down into all the fabric of how we interact with the world, how we make sense of the world. It's very interesting. That gives it an extremely powerful place to be, because we're able to design
mm.
how people engage with technology, and therefore how they make meaning of the world and being, because it's increasingly dependent on technology, right? Look at AI, for example. Now it's like, everybody wants to engage or interact with some kind of AI technology on all sorts of levels.
Yeah.
So if having the power, and that's exactly what I tell my students, you have the power to design that interaction and therefore influence how people experience the world.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? So yeah,
It's absolutely fascinating. So we come across human-computer interaction in a range of things. Subtle things like driving your car. What about assistance in driving your car?
definitely.
Okay. When you turn the steering wheel, there's an assistant. When you press the thing, there is an assistant. So this is a very subtle kind of interaction. So the interactive technology is all over the place. But of course, there's obvious things like your phone. You're
Mm,
interacting with your phone, with your watch. But there's also other layers, and it gets subtler and subtler. And we're interested again in HCI and all these sorts of things.
yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay.